Hey guys, I'm currently experimenting with a new storytelling style that's a lot more conversational, like I'm talking to you like a friend and I'm explaining to you the story. So let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. And like usual, I always keep my side comments and my own reviews and thoughts at the end of the story. So if you like that kind of stuff, then continue watching. Let's start with the first story. This story comes from a man who once served as a soldier along the northern border. And right away, he made one thing clear. He could not reveal his name, the name of his unit, all that information, because if you were to make the story public, even after all these years, some of these details could still cause problems if people were to find out. Regardless, what he could say was this. Back then, he was part of a border patrol unit. His job was to move through remote mountain routes, look for illegal crossings, and keep an eye on paths that were often used to move drugs across the border. It was dangerous work, but it was also routine. Basically, it was the kind of job where the men were trained to expect danger from people, not from something that they could not explain. And yet, on one ordinary patrol, something happened to him and 11 other soldiers that none of them have ever been able to forget. You see, that phrase was telling me that this was just not a normal experience, your typical day-to-day experience. I'm guessing already that they meant Bigfoot. It's always going to be Bigfoot. That day started like any normal patrol day. The team leader gathered 12 soldiers and prepared them to move out. They left the meeting point in front of the camp at around 4 in the evening, carrying their gear and following a route that they already knew well. The men called this route the Red Area. It was because it ran along the border and everyone in the unit understood why it had that name. It was a high-risk path, the kind of place where drug smugglers were known to pass through. So even though the soldiers had walked it before, no one treated it casually. The weather that evening was colder than usual. Winter was starting to creep in, and the sky darkened faster than expected. Before leaving, the team had received a report that there might be drug movement through the Red Area at night. Because of that, they were ordered to set up a temporary camp, make a fire, and wait in position to watch for anything suspicious. Ooh, this story is already giving us very high stakes. Not only are they going to encounter Bigfoot, they're going to encounter druggies, drug dealers, and then they're going to have to shoot the drug dealers and then also shoot Bigfoot. Or Bigfoot will come in and will help the soldiers fight against the drug dealers because, Bigfoot also wants to keep the drugs out of his forest. Anyways, back to the story. Their team leader chose a large tree as cover and told everyone to settle behind it. Like always, the men took turns keeping watch while the others rested. Everything felt normal at first. A quiet forest, cold air, a small fire, and soldiers waiting in the dark. But then, at around 1 in the morning, that all changed. While the soldier and one of his teammates were on guard duty, they heard something moving nearby. It sounded like footsteps. Not an animal moving through dry leaves, not the heavy movement of a group, but something walking on 2 legs. In a place like that, one wrong sound could mean smugglers, scouts, or even an ambush. So, the soldiers reacted the way they had been trained to react. The fire was put out, the men moved into position, and everyone prepared for whatever was coming. But as the footsteps came closer, something felt off. The sound did not match a group of armed men. It did not sound organized. It did not sound careful. It sounded like one person stumbling through the forest. Then, out of the darkness, the person appeared. It was a small boy. He came in half walking, half running, and then collapsed near the place where their campfire had been. From the way he looked, the soldiers guessed that he was probably from one of the ethnic minority groups in that area, not any ordinary local village child. His body was covered in bruises and fresh wounds. He looked like someone who had been beaten and had run through the forest to escape. The team leader tried to speak to him, but none of the men could understand his language. Even the soldiers, who knew several local dialects, could not understand what he was saying, but his body language was clear enough. He was scared, and he needed help. At least, that was what it looked like. You know what, guys? If it was me and there was a random kid that stumbled upon my campsite in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the night, I might be a little suspicious. Of course, what if this kid is like a skinwalker or something, I don't know, maybe I'm just tripping. Anyways, the team had to make a decision. They were fully armed and they knew the area was dangerous. The boy could have been a real victim, but he also could have been bait. In places like that, a trap does not always look like a trap. Sometimes it looks like someone asking for help. Still, they decided to follow him, but they did so very carefully. The team spread out, moved slowly, and stayed alert. They would follow, but they would not rush in blindly. At first, the boy led them deeper into the forest. Less than 5 minutes after they started walking, the atmosphere changed. The forest sounds faded away. The birds, the insects, and distant animal calls, all of it seemed to vanish. All they could hear were their own footsteps. And when they stopped walking, it was quiet enough to hear each other breathe. That kind of silence in a forest does not feel peaceful. It feels wrong. It feels like everything living has moved away from you. The boy kept walking faster and faster. The soldiers had to pick up their pace just to keep up with him. After about half an hour, the men checking the map started to get uneasy. If they kept going, there was a chance that they could cross the border without realizing it. There was also the danger of old landmines in the area. So, the team leader made the safest call he could. They would keep following, but only at a safe pace. If they lost the boy, then they lost him. The distance between the soldiers and the boy grew wider. Then the boy stopped. He was waiting beside a stream. When the soldiers reached the stream, the map officer checked his map again. Except there was a problem. According to the map, that stream did not exist. And that was not only the strange thing. On the opposite side of the stream, there was a small village. The team had never seen it before. It was not marked, it was not reported, and it was not supposed to be there. The boy did not wait for them to understand what was happening. He jumped into the stream, swam across, and ran straight into the village. And then he disappeared. The soldiers stood there, staring at what just happened. At first, they tried to explain it in a normal way. Maybe it was a small tribal village that had never been mapped properly. Perhaps it was too remote. Maybe nobody had reported it. In that kind of terrain, things like this could have gone missed. Not knowing what to do next, the team leader ordered them to cross carefully. The water was only a little above waist level, so they didn't have to swim like the boy had. They crossed one by one with the others covering them, and before long, all 12 soldiers were on the other side. By then, it was a little after 2 in the morning, and the village was silent. The soldiers did not walk straight in. At that hour, if people were really living there, a group of armed men entering openly could cause panic, so they moved around to the back and entered quietly. The village was small, and from what they could see, it had fewer than 20 houses. The buildings were mostly made out of wood and bamboo, the kind of homes that looked handmade and old. But as they observed the area, something became clear. There were no lights, no voices, no animals, not even a sign of anybody living there. It didn't feel like a sleeping village. It felt like an abandoned one. That raised another question. If the village was abandoned, where did that boy go? The team leader ordered them to secure the area and began searching. The first house they entered was badly decayed. It was made from bamboo with a grass-thatched roof, and inside there were only old belongings that had been left behind. Nothing moved, nothing breathed, and there were no signs of life. At that point, they could have turned back. Honestly, if it was me, I would have turned back. Red flags, guys. This random kid stumbles upon our base camp in the middle of the night, knowing where we were. I guess our campfire was on. And then we follow him, cross this river that wasn't on the map, go into this abandoned village. It's a ghost village, guys. This is a bad sign. This is where, the ghosts come out and they kill them or something. But since they had already come that far, the team leader decided that they should inspect a little bit more, maybe find some more evidence, and they could find out who that boy was, and perhaps they would understand why this village was hidden out here so far in the dark. Then they approached the second house, and that was when the smell reached them. As soon as they came close to the second house, a foul odor drifted into the air. It was the kind of smell that tells you something is dead before you ever see it. When they opened the door, the idea that this was just an ordinary abandoned village disappeared instantly. Inside, near a large wooden support pillar, a big nail had been driven into the wood. A rope was tied there, and hanging from that rope was the body of a young woman. Some of the soldiers could not stop themselves from vomiting. The woman was dressed in strange clothing, something that looked like traditional clothing from a local tribe, possibly handwoven. But her body was already badly decomposed. The lower half had rotted so severely that parts had fallen to the floor. Blood, pus, and the smell of decay filled the house. It was horrifying. And now, the situation had changed completely. This was no longer just a strange village. This was a crime scene, or something close to one. The team began to have a more serious search of the area, and that was when they found the warehouse. The next building was larger than the others. It looked like a storage structure, also made of wood, but wider and more solid than the small houses around it. The soldiers forced the door open. Inside, they found crates, not just a few of them, but a massive amount of them. The entire space, about 5 by 10 meters, were packed with illegal drugs. The crates were stacked high, almost 2 meters tall, ready to be moved and transported into the red area. In that moment, everything made sense, and also didn't make sense at the same time. Maybe the hidden village was being used as a storage point. Perhaps the dead woman had been connected to it, and the boy that they saw earlier was probably running from the people guarding it. But before they could figure out any of that, the team leader knew one thing for sure. They had to leave. If an armed group behind that warehouse came back, those 12 men could easily be outnumbered. And in terrain like that, in complete darkness like that, a firefight could become very deadly very quickly. Then the gunfire started. It happened in an instant. Gunshots exploded from the darkness. The sound was heavy, like military-grade weapons. A wave of bullets tore towards the soldiers. Luckily, they were already alert and prepared, so they managed to take cover. No one was hit in the first burst, When the firing stopped, the team began retreating according to procedure, trying to identify where the shots were coming from. But that was the problem. They could not see anyone. No muzzle flashes, no movement, and no figures in the dark. Only the sound of gunfire. Then the shooting started again. This time, the soldier felt it. A bullet struck him in the chest. At least that's what he believed it was. He fell hard. A burning pain spread throughout his body, starting from his chest and moving everywhere at once. His hearing disappeared and his limbs stopped responding. He couldn't move and he couldn't speak. And then, just like people say, images from his life flooded his mind. He understood what it felt like to die. Then his teammates rushed in. They dragged him away, slapped his face, and shouted for him to get up. And suddenly, it was like waking up from a dream. His strength returned all at once, like a machine being plugged back into power. The team pulled back into the forest and checked everyone. All 12 men were alive. No one had been shot. No one had any serious injuries. There were only small cuts and bruises from falling during the retreat. Even the old soldier checked his own chest, and there was no blood, no hole, no wound, nothing. From the outside, his body was completely normal. But he knew what he had felt. He had felt the bullet hit him. He had felt himself dying. So what was that? By then, it was probably around 3 in the morning. They tried to use the radio, but there was no signal. So the team decided to make their way back to the stream and return to their original patrol. But the stream was gone. Dang, that was intense. This reminds me of similar stories of like soldiers who had died, but their spirits still linger, and they're doomed to fight the same battle over and over and over for all of eternity. But if you guys gotten this far, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's continue. No matter where they walked, they could not find it. The map officer checked the compass and he checked their positions. He tried to retrace their route, but nothing matched. Every direction that they went into seemed wrong. Every path seemed to curve back to the same place. It felt like the forest itself was trapping them. They walked in circles without understanding how, and the more they tried to correct their route, the more lost they became. Eventually, the team leader decided to stop. Moving around in the dark was too dangerous. If they crossed paths with the armed group again, they might not be as lucky the second time. So all 12 men sat down behind a large tree, fully armed, waiting for daylight. Nobody slept, and they all waited for the sun. When morning finally came, the first light spread through the trees, and what they saw in front of them made no sense. There, right in front of them, right ahead of them, was the fire pit from their original camp, the same place where they had stopped earlier that night, the same place that they had left before following the boy. Somehow, after crossing a stream that was not on the map, entering a hidden village, finding a body, discovering a warehouse full of drugs and getting shot at, and then retreating into the forest, getting lost, walking in circles, they somehow ended right back where they started. And they didn't understand it. But one thing they understood was that none of them wanted to stay there for another second. They immediately returned back to their camp. After the team reported what happened, the matter became serious. A hidden village full of narcotics was not something anybody could ignore. Their unit sent multiple teams to search the coordinates the map officer had marked. They searched again and again, but nothing. No village, no warehouse, no stream, and not even the same terrain. Even the original team tried to go back later and find the place themselves, but they never found it again. Not once. The stream that they had crossed vanished as if it had never existed. To outsiders, the story started sounding exaggerated. Some people thought that the soldiers must have been confused in the dark, and others thought that they had misread the terrain. Some probably thought the entire thing was just a campfire story that grew over time, but for the 12 men who were there, it was not a story. It was something that they lived through. Decades have passed since that night, and whenever the members of that team meet again, they still talk about it. They all still argue about what happened. They try to make sense of the boy, the stream, the abandoned village, the dead woman hanging in that house, and all the things they encountered that night. As for the soldier who told the story, there's one detail that never really went fully away. His chest still hurts sometimes. There's no scar, no wound, no medical explanation, and at one point, the pain bothered him so much that he went to a doctor and had to get an x-ray done. But they found nothing. However, he still remembers that burning feeling. He remembers falling. He remembers thinking in that final moment that he was about to die. And to this day, he still does not know whether that village was real, whether it was some kind of trap, or if they had crossed into a place that should not exist. All he knows was that 12 soldiers went into the forest that night, and all of them came back, but none of them came back with an answer. Talk about an experience, man. What if these guys, okay, maybe we can get into the conspiracy theories and stuff like that, but what if these group of soldiers, what if they were, partying out there in the woods, drinking alcohol, right? But let's say that they were very disciplined soldiers and they were not those type of soldiers, right? So they encounter this strange kid that doesn't speak their language. The kid doesn't understand them. They don't understand the kid, but they can tell the kid needs help. They follow this kid, cross this river that doesn't show up on the map, into this abandoned village. There's this dead lady that's decomposing, hanging from one of the wooden pillars, and they are terrified. And then they go check out this warehouse, and there's all this drug in the warehouse. And all of a sudden, they start getting shot at, and there's this big firefight going on. And, even the main soldier, the guy that read this story, sent this story in, he felt like he was dying, but it was like all an illusion. They kept going in circles and circles, and somehow, when the daytime came, they ended up back at the same spot where they started. That would be absolutely terrifying. I don't know if I could ever handle anything like that ever again. I would question reality itself. And I might even go back and try to find that village, that abandoned village. But maybe it was, that boy, right? That boy was the spirit, and he was trying to get help. But this was something that might have happened way long ago in the past when that village actually existed, And then, the spirit of the boy wanted to get help from people, so that way all those dead villagers and what happened there at that village, the atrocity that occurred at that village, can be cleansed, or all those spirits can be reincarnated back into heaven. So maybe that boy was trying to get help from the soldiers, and it was just at the right time, at the right place, where the veil between the spirit world and the human world was so thin that a spirit came from that village, tried to get help from all those soldiers, and those soldiers ended up being trapped there, So that's my hypothesis. That's my theory. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. Let's continue on to the next story. This story happened inside the storyteller's own family. And even though it begins with something very ordinary, the kind of thing that many families go through when an elderly parent gets sick, it slowly turns into something much stranger. Something that was not just about illnesses, not about old age, and not just about death. You see, the storyteller, let's call him Tom, grew up in a family of 5. There was his father, his mother, his younger brother, and his grandmother, including Tom himself. His grandmother was already over 80 years old, and like many people at that age, she had a lot of health problems. She was weak, she had chronic illnesses, and she needed help with a lot of things. But there was one person in the family that she was especially close to, Tom's younger brother. The two of them were extremely attached to each other. They had that kind of grandparent and grandchild relationship where they did not need to say much. Everybody in that house could see it, and this bond that they have would become very important later. Very important. Tom's family had two houses built right next to each other. The first house belonged to his grandmother. The second was a newer house that Tom's father had recently built. Eventually, the whole family moved into this new house, the one that Tom's dad built. Everybody except good old Grandma. She refused to leave her old house. Now, at first, that did not seem too unusual. Elderly people can be attached to their own space. They know where everything is, they feel comfortable there. So instead of forcing her to move, the family took turns sleeping at grandmother's house to look after her. Some nights it was Tom, and some nights it was somebody else. However, on the night that everything changed, it was Tom's younger brother's turn. That same day, Tom's father and mother had gone to a meeting in another province. So, basically, the two boys were the only ones at home. Tom was sleeping in the newer house while his younger brother was staying with Grandma next door. Everything seemed normal at first, until it was in the middle of the night. Tom was asleep when he suddenly heard a loud banging on his bedroom door. His younger brother was outside, panicking, crying so hard that his words were almost impossible to understand. Brother Tom, Grandma's gone. Grandma's not breathing anymore." Tom woke up instantly. You could imagine the shock. One second he was asleep, the next second his little brother was telling him that their grandmother had just died. So Tom grabbed his phone, ready to call an ambulance, and he ran straight to Grandma's house. But the moment he entered, something made him stop. He heard Grandma's voice, and she was shouting, "I won't go! I still won't go! Please, let me stay a little longer!" That should have been impossible, because just a few moments earlier, his brother had been crying that Grandma wasn't breathing. Tom rushed into her room, and there she was. Grandma, good old poor old Grandma, was standing in the corner of the room, trembling violently. Her posture was strange, like she was not just scared, but terrified of something standing in front of her, something that Tom could not see. Then Grandma said something that stayed in Tom's mind for years. "Let me wait until it's finished first, and I'll do good deeds to make up for it." And right after that, she collapsed. Tom called the ambulance and told his brother that Grandma was still alive. She had not gone anywhere yet. Oh, talk about tough old lady. That night, they followed the ambulance to the hospital and stayed there to watch over her. But when the doctor examined her, the result was strange. There was nothing seriously wrong. In fact, the doctor had said that her health looked strong, maybe even better than during her previous checkups. By the morning, the doctor said that they could take her home. Before dawn, Tom's parents rushed back from their meeting. But once the whole family was together again, Tom's younger brother apologized. He thought that he had panicked too much. He thought that maybe he misunderstood Grandma's condition and assumed the worst. But Tom wasn't so sure, because he swore he could hear Grandma speaking to somebody or something that night. He saw her trembling in the corner, and he heard her bargain for something. At first, he wondered if he should tell everybody. Maybe they would think he was imagining things, and maybe it would only make the family more afraid. But at the same time, if something strange was happening, everybody needed to know. So Tom did what he thought was best. He told everybody about what happened. At first, his father didn't really believe it. But then Grandma came home, and that was when things became harder to dismiss. Guys, I know where this is going. Grandma made a deal with the devil, okay? So that's why she's alive now. She made a deal with the devil. She's going to sell her soul. Before that night, Grandma was weak. She had many health problems. She could barely walk properly, and she needed help eating. And the family had nearly reached the point where they had to feed her only soft or liquid food. But after coming back from the hospital, she stepped out of the car and walked into the house by herself, calmly and normally, like nothing had ever happened. Her voice was clear now. There was no roughness, no dryness, and no weak elderly tremble. That morning, she came out and ate by herself like a healthy person. At first, the family was happy. Of course they were. Who wouldn't be? Someone that they loved had recovered suddenly. But later that same morning, Grandma vomited. Then she told Tom's mother something strange. That evening, she wanted to eat blood larb. Raw blood larb. Now, for some of you guys who don't know what larb is, it's like a Thai dish, and it's pretty delicious. You could eat it raw, like usually they use like beef and stuff like that, or pork and stuff like that. And you gotta cook it. You gotta prepare it correctly. Otherwise, obviously, you'll get sick or get parasites and stuff like that. But it's delicious, and you can also have it cooked. I prefer to have my larb cooked. It's delicious. It's like the perfect snack to eat when you're drunk. It's like a good drinking kind of dish or side dish. Anyways, that's what larb is. Now, Pat was not like Grandma at all. Normally, she would not even eat food that was slightly undercooked. Raw meat was completely out of character for her. But from that point on, Grandma only wanted raw food. If raw meat was available, she would eat it. If not, she would refuse food and only drink milk or eat fruit. The family was worried. Raw food was dangerous, especially for somebody her age. This old lady is 80 years old, she's eating raw food. But they also thought, she's already over 80. If eating what she wanted made her feel happy, and if she was suddenly stronger than before, then perhaps it was better not to fight her too hard. So they let it happen. And for a while, Grandma did indeed become stronger and stronger. One day, though, Grandma disappeared. The family panicked and started preparing to search for her, but before they could go far, the door opened. Grandma walked back in by herself. She was smiling. She was dressed completely in white, and she told them that she had walked to the temple. She had not gone there in a long time, and she wanted to get some exercise. But there was a problem with that explanation. The temple was almost 5 kilometers away, or 3 miles for you Americans. Actually, I'm American too, my bad. 3 miles for us Americans. For an elderly woman over 80, someone who had been weak and sick not long ago, walking there and back should have been almost impossible. And yet, she had done it. After that, walking to the temple became part of Grandma's daily routine. Every day, she would go back and forth. The family was amazed, confused, and happy all at once. It looked like a miracle. But miracles do not usually come with the smell of raw meat, or with dogs running away in terror. I'm just beginning to think that Grandma is just one tough old lady. Back in my day, we ate raw meat. Look at you kids on your iPads and tablets. Back in the day, we played with sticks and ate mud. Stuff like that. Anyways, a few months later, Tom's younger brother entered university and moved into a dormitory, so he did not come home as often. That meant that Tom became the one who regularly slept at Grandma's house to watch over her. That was when he started seeing things for himself. One night, Tom woke up and saw Grandma get out of bed. She walked straight to the refrigerator, opened the freezer compartment, and took out frozen pork. And then she ate it. Not wildly, not like some monster or animal in a movie, but calmly. She bit into it once or twice, like she was tasting something, and then put it back into the freezer as if nothing had ever happened. And that made it worse in a way, because it was not chaotic, it was deliberate. Other strange things started to happen too. Stray dogs and cats that wandered near their house would scatter the moment Grandma opened the door. Their tails would tuck under, and they would run away like they had seen something terrifying. During the daytime, Grandma liked to close the curtains, turn off the lights, and sit alone in the dark. Sometimes, Tom would secretly listen from outside the room, and he would hear her speaking, but not to anyone the family could see. In the second year after Grandma had quote-unquote come back, there was a night that fell on a major Buddhist holy day. Everybody came to sleep at Grandma's house that night, except Tom's younger brother, who was still at his dormitory, at the university. In the middle of the night, they heard a sound outside. It was like fingernails, long fingernails scraping across glass, scraping along the walls, and moving around the house. Not just one set of hands, not two, but from the sound, it was like dozens of people were circling the house, dragging their nails against the walls as they moved. At the same time, dogs howled all through the alley. The family was terrified. Then Grandma suddenly sat up. Her eyes were closed and her hands were pressed together. She began chanting something under her breath. Then she opened her eyes. They were blood red. Everyone recoiled. Grandma stood up, walked to the refrigerator, took out pieces of pork and beef, and threw them outside the house. Then she picked up a fruit knife and walked around inside, scraping and slicing the walls. Tom's father asked her what she was doing, and Grandma only said, "Stay still. Do not be afraid." A little while later, the sounds outside disappeared. By morning, the meat Grandma had thrown outside was scattered everywhere, like something had fought over it. One night, while the family was sleeping, a loud crash came from the front of the house. Everyone ran outside and found two men with handguns who had crashed their motorcycle into an electric pole across from the house. Both men had broken necks and they were both dead. At first, it looked like a strange accident. Then Tom's father checked the security camera footage. The footage showed that the two men had been thieves. They climbed over the wall and broke into the house, but as soon as they got inside, both of them dropped to their knees. They pressed their palms together and they begged for their lives, not from the family, but from something inside the house. Then Grandma appeared in the footage. She walked toward them and took something like some sort of bomb, herbal bomb, and rubbed it onto their foreheads. After that, both thieves scrambled out in terror, climbed back over the wall, and ran to their motorcycle, and then crashed into the electric pole. It was impossible to explain normally, but by then, the family had already learned to live with impossible things. Tom's younger brother once said that whenever he hugged Grandma, her body smelled extremely foul. It wasn't like that before. In the past, Grandma used to smell like Thai-scented water or perfume, and now she just smelled rotten. Still, whatever Grandma had become, she seemed to protect the family. Guys, it's summer right now, and there are these kids outside who keep yelling and screaming, and it's just in the way of my recording. Anyways, one day, Tom's younger brother was at the market, and he was about to get on a motorcycle taxi to return to his university. But just before he climbed on, he heard Grandma's voice calling from behind him. He turned, and because of that, he missed the ride. Instead, another passenger got on. Later, they found out that the motorcycle taxi had been attacked by a rival and shot. The driver was seriously injured. If Tom's brother had gotten on that motorcycle, he too might have been badly hurt, or maybe even worse. So even though Grandma, good old Grandma, 80 years old, was frightening, the family just could not see her as purely evil. She was strange and unnatural, but it was still Grandma. Or at least something in her still was. Over time, all of these things became a part of their daily life. It sounds strange, but people can almost get used to anything. The raw food, the dark room, the foul stench, and the scratching things outside during the Buddhist holy days. Grandma's sudden strength and her strange protection. Almost 4 years had passed, and Tom's younger brother was close to graduating from university. As that day approached, Grandma began to decline again. Her body became weak. She could no longer walk to the temple, and her smell became stronger, more rotten, and more difficult to ignore. She had to be fed again like before. The things that scratched outside the house started coming more often too. Before, they usually came only on Buddhist holy days. Now, they come so frequently that Tom's mother had to buy raw pork and leave it outside by the front gate every single day. It was like something was waiting, like the time Grandma had borrowed was almost over. Then came the day that Tom's younger brother completed his final university credits. The family helped move his belongings back from the dormitory. That same day, something strange happened. Grandma stood up and walked again, just like before. Strong, clear, and able to move normally. But this time, her words were different. She kept on saying strange things that sounded like final instructions, like she was quietly saying goodbye to everybody. Then, around the time Tom's younger brother was about to attend his graduation ceremony, Grandma spoke to Tom late one night. "I'm going to leave now," she told him. "I've postponed them for a long time, and they've been waiting for me for many days. Now, it really is time." Tom felt his heart sink. He asked her to tell him the truth, everything. And that was when Grandma finally explained what had happened on the night she stopped breathing. Grandma said that on that night, she felt tightness in her chest. Then, a tall old man appeared in the room. He was large, with red skin, no shirt, and he was just wearing traditional pants wrapped around his lower body. The whole room was filled with light. When he touched her, she felt herself floating away. She could not control where she was going. As she moved, images from her past flashed around her. Memories appeared one after another, depending on what she thought about. But then she saw one final image. Tom's younger brother graduating. That image made her regain consciousness, or something close to it. Then she found herself at a valley. There were countless people there, millions of them, standing in line before a huge wooden gate that reached up into the sky. At that moment, Grandma thought only of her family. Tom's father, Tom's mother, Tom, and especially his younger brother, who had not yet entered university at the time. Then somebody, dressed in all white, walked over, pointed at Grandma and said, "This one still has attachments." In the next instant, she woke up. The same red old man was standing at the foot of her bed. And that was when Grandma understood. She had died. Or, at least, she should have died. So she begged, she negotiated, she promised that if she was allowed to stay a little longer, she would do good deeds and repay the karma later. After that, Grandma said that she knew she was no longer fully human. She had come back as something in between, half person and half ghost. The next morning, Tom's father told Tom and his mother to take the younger brother to the university for the graduation ceremony, and his father would instead stay behind to take care of Grandma. Before they left, Grandma hugged and kissed Tom's younger brother. The way she held him made it feel like she knew it would be the last time. After the graduation ceremony, Tom, his mother, and his younger brother went to rest at a hotel. But that evening, their father called. Grandma's condition had become serious. She had been taken to the hospital. Tom immediately drove his mother and brother back, and they arrived around dawn. His father told them that Grandma was gone. This time, truly gone. Tom's father said that around 3 in the morning, while he was watching over Grandma, he had a dream. In the dream, Grandma walked over and hugged him. She kissed him and told him that she loved him, his wife, and all her grandchildren very much. But she had to go now. She also told him to thank Tom's mother. "Thank her for me," Grandma said. "Thank her for taking such good care of you and your children all this time." Then Tom's father woke up. And when he opened his eyes, Grandma was sitting properly on the hospital bed with her palms pressed together, as if she was speaking to somebody that no one else could see. Then she slowly sat back down, and her pulse stopped. After everything was over, Tom thought back to the words that Grandma had said years earlier. "Let me wait until it's finished first." Now he understood what those words meant. She had been waiting for Tom's younger brother to graduate from university. In their family, no one had ever graduated from university before. Not on his father's side, not on his mother's side, not even Tom himself. Grandma had held on for that. When Tom later asked his parents about it, they admitted that they already knew Grandma would leave around that time. They just did not think it would happen so suddenly. They also explained why Grandma had gone to the temple so often after coming back. She had been making merit. She had helped build bathrooms for the temple and had done many other charitable acts. Tom's parents had also helped arrange merit-making in her name. Maybe she really was keeping her promise, and maybe she had been allowed to stay just long enough to see the one thing she could not let go of. She repaid her merit just so she could see her youngest grandchild graduate from university. Wow, what a good story. That is probably one of the sweetest stories ever. It's a little, if it was me, it'd be a little creepy. I'd be like, "Grandma, why are your eyes red? Grandma, why are you taking the knife? Grandma, why are you eating ramen?" I'd be terrified out of my mind. But, she protected them, especially from those thieves who crashed into the electric pole, and she, protected them from all the crazy, spooky stuff that would come around their house. And I guess she was right. She was like half human, half spirit of some sort, and she had access to these magical, mystical powers and protected their home. So, what a sweet story, and a part of me honestly thought that it was gonna take a turn for the worse. Like maybe the grandma became super demonic and now wanted to eat human meat or wanted to kill her own family. But that's just because of, I'm crazy and I listen to stories like that sometimes. But in this case, I guess because she still had some part of her own humanity, that's why she didn't go so fully insane. She was only partially spirit and partially humanity, partially human, so she held on to that. That's what kept her sane until it was time for her to go. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. Bye.